Okay, so for folks who are watching this on YouTube, I forgot to start the program. So anyways, where we are, Travis is talking about the results of our survey that we did. Everything else that we've done so far, you can read on the screen. So carry on.
Should have been here at the meeting. So we're considering going to that alternating format, and I hope that people will feel more encouraged to actually submit to the photo challenges and look at it less like a competition about I'm not going to win because so-and-so always wins, or I'm not going to win because my skills are not where their skills are. Look at it like my skills are not where the judges' skills are, and they're going to help me get better. They're going to help me learn what I did right in my photo and what I could do better, or maybe a different perspective. And you can always learn from critiques of other people's images, especially when we do it on a theme. You can hear the commentary and feedback on every image and maybe apply that to your own imagery in the future. So I am going to hope that people submit more often. The judging is going to be like it was this year, where the photo review judge is going to be the one that picks the images. It's not going to be something that is decided by the people in attendance in the room or on Zoom. It's not going to be membership driven on what the selections are for first, second, third, whatever. But that's not the primary focus of it. That's kind of one of the big things that I'm going to try to get through to people, that the primary focus for the photo challenge next year is more educational, and less about winning in prizes. A couple of the other things that we're considering is our location. We've finally figured out our internet problems here, but we're still a little far from some of our membership and a little closer for some. So we're still looking at options on trying to bridge the gap between the people that are far away from here or the people that are close to here. Obviously, we're not going to move to LaGrange because that's not going to work for 95% of us. But we are looking at the meeting location as another thing that might change. More to come on that in the future. The overwhelming majority voted for Waterfalls as one of our workshops. We're doing Waterfalls as our theme tonight. So Rick and I are going to work on making a waterfall workshop, and a couple of the others that have been requested. So overall, the feedback in the survey was really good. It told us a lot about what club members want, what they don't want, and what they don't like. We will be continuing to do Zoom and in-person meetings, because by far 75% of the people said keep it to Zoom and in person. That way we have the option. And there is going to be at least one next year that is going to be Zoom only, because the guest speaker that I've got lined up for it, he's only doing Zoom presentations. He's not going to be in town next year. So there will be one that everybody will be on Zoom, and you can all stay home in your comfy chair, in your pajamas, with your favorite beverage in your hand. So at least whatever's on screen, let's keep that PG or G, please. Or you can have your camera turned off, Rick. I'll let you do that. One of the other things that I'm pretty excited about that we're going to do again that we haven't done in a long time is a members show, where we're going to find a gallery and members are going to be allowed to submit. We haven't figured out the submittal rules and guidelines and numbers and categories and all that yet, but we're going to do a members show, because I think it's really cool as a group to get everybody that's a participating member of this club to put their work on the wall in a place and see it hanging on the wall. I have long been a proponent of print your photography, print your work, and to see your piece hanging on the wall is something pretty cool. And if you've never had that opportunity, then we're going to do that this year, or well, next year coming up. That's kind of one of the other big things that a lot of people were really interested in doing. So the rest of the survey we're going to use to generate our themes for the photo review challenges. Whatever we don't use for photo review challenges, we might end up using for some of the weekly challenges on the Facebook group. We will put all of this to use somehow, some way. So I'm very thankful that the number of people that submitted the survey did. I appreciate it. Thank you very much to all of you who did.
Did you say how many?
How many people responded? I think 70. So it's not that we're collecting data from like 10 people. We're collecting data from, how many paid members are we now? So,
Quite half, but it's more than last year's survey, and it was anonymous too, so.
yeah,
We didn't know who sent in the survey responses,
I knew which one was Rick's.
except for Heather, who put down, that, her husband was president.
Yes, it's because of the pajamas question, Rick. That's why I called you out. I knew which one was yours. So anyway, I'm looking forward to what the club's gonna do next year. I hope that everyone else is too. I'm ready to get back involved with a club more regularly than I have been, and look forward to being a part of it with everybody else. So back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Travis. I'm especially not falling. We got a lot of wires around here, and I had surgery on my legs last week, so I'm making sure that I don't trip on these wires. So anyway, so thanks, Travis. A lot of things we're going to figure out, we're going to discuss over the next 2 months. But yeah, the future is bright. All right, so we do have one more field trip for the year, and I'll let Rick talk about that. But before we do that, we have our annual holiday party coming up on December 7th. It's going to be at the Gainesville Civic Center. It's going to be catered by Olive Garden. My beautiful wife, Heather, who's hiding in the back, and is the only meeting she's been to all year. She's been arranging all of this. So it's going to be free to attend. We've sent out email invites. Rick sent out the email invites. We also have the link on the paid members Facebook page. So it is only going to be for paid members. That's one of the benefits of being a paid member. One of the things we'll discuss at the meeting is we'll announce the photographer of the year and the top 5 photographers of the year from our monthly challenges. So that will be announced there. And aside from that, just fellowship and fun. Did I leave anything out? We need RSVPs by November 30th. Okay. And if you can get it sooner, that's even better, because we have to tell Olive Garden how much food we need. Yeah. So we just need to know how much food to order, but the room is already reserved, so we're good. And that's at 6 p.m. on December 7th. So think about Olive Garden while you're eating your Thanksgiving turkey. All right, Rick, if you want to.
Christmas party is open to spouses. And
Yes.
too, right?
The party is open to spouses, your family, any guests that you want to bring, as long as you're a paid member. But when you RSVP, let us know how many people are coming, so we don't think it's only 10 people and we have 20 people show up.
The form is set up for you to do that, to tell us exactly who else is coming with you. Just again, one field trip left, November 23rd, coming up this weekend. The SLOSS field trip, a lot of you have signed up for that. I think we have 18 people going to that thing. If you've never been before, basically it is rust and corrosion and calamity and beauty. It's just one of the coolest places. What's that? And ghosts, okay. Some of you see those. I see other stuff, but that's okay. So anyway, that's coming up Saturday. For those who are interested, we do have some carpooling, but it's out of Sewell Mill library. So that really helps the CPS team more than it does the North Georgia team. But in any case, last one of the year, then we're going to hit Barber Museum. I think it's the Barber Museum of Motorsports History or something like that, which is an absolutely stunning, amazing facility. I've never been there, but it photographs well. So I plan on checking that out. A lot of motorcycles and a few cars there too. So that'll be like on the way back from Sloss. We've got a lunch planned. It should be a lot of fun. Speaking finally of field trips, as we go into 2025, I have sent out a form asking for your opinions on what you want to do field trips. And I've gotten quite a few responses back. If you haven't done that yet, similar to what you just heard about the Christmas party, I'm going to cut that off on November 30th. So both of those things, your drop dead date is November 30th. I want to get your responses back so we can plan in the month of December what our monthly trips are going to be for the whole year. I like to plan it out for the entire year. So we'll have 11 of them pre-planned, January through November. December, everybody gets off. So you can eat way too much food and hang out with your families and travel to other parts of the country and all that stuff. But January through November, we'll have field trips. I'll tell you now, there will be a spring birding trip to Florida as we've done the past 2 years. We did 2 years ago, we did the alligator farm, which was an amazing trip, a lot of fun. Last year, we did Orlando Wetlands Park and Lake Apopka and saw lots of alligators and lots of cool birds. And I've never seen so damn many ospreys tearing fish apart. It was some parts of it were kind of gross. And then this year, we're going to do the Gainesville, Florida area, which is a whole lot closer to us. So not as bad of a drive, but that's on the board. Travis and I were talking earlier for our fall colors trip. We're really getting ideas of making that an overnighter also. So we'll have at least 2 trips that are kind of lengthy overnighters, and that one will be up to the Tremont area. Okay, in the Smokies. So really looking forward to that because I've never been there. So that's all I got.
Yeah, liar.
So who was that led that trip back in 2015?
I don't know, some good looking guy.
Oh, okay.
Amazing.
I know he had a really tiny car back then. Not as tiny. So, and one thing I also want to say about trips, if you want to go somewhere and you want people in the club to go with you, feel free to mention it on the Facebook page. Those impromptu trips can be great. Our very first Mookie Way trip to Brasstown Bald about 8-9 years ago started as a post actually from Kevin Mooney. Just says, who wants to go there? And we ended up with about 10 or 12 people there that night. So feel free to do that. We may also, in addition to Rick's list, we may come up with things during the year. There might be events that'll come up. For example, as I do every year, I'm going to mention Dragon Con. Not a lot of people go, but I'm going to mention it. So
Goodbye. Hello trip. Goodbye to this year. Hello to next year.
oh, the New Year's Eve. Yeah, that's
That castle fair at the castle where I live in Helen.
oh, I saw that posted. When is that?
January, yeah.
Can you-
January 17th to 19th.
Can you schedule on a weekend that's not as cold as last year?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, that was a cold one.
Yeah.
It was, but, they have the heating things,
Mhm.
I've got a lot of photos of people standing with their arms in costume and standing, putting their hands up on those warmers.
Mhm.
But yeah, anyway, I'll send you the info, or I'll put it on Facebook.
Yeah, because that I didn't get to go to that last year, but the pictures I saw was really cool. It's kind of like the Renaissance Festival, but but for us anyways, since it's in Helen, it's a lot closer. So yeah, there's a lot to offer. So just take advantage of it. That's what we're here for. All right. So now we're going to do our presentation. Bob Hughes is here and he is going to talk about cell phone photography. So let's see here.
This is your phone. This is how you start it. Take picture.
All right. Short meeting. Oh, I don't even see. Oh, okay. What do we got here? I can hear you, but I can't speak at the, okay, somebody's having a technical issue. Oh, that's Glenn. I need to introduce you to Glenn. Okay, there's one person who doesn't like the way we've been doing the judging. They prefer the members judging instead of having one judge. That's fair enough statement. Your dad says the internet issues are not completely solved. It's intermittently buzzing for 5 seconds. And then when can you see the can you see that? Oh, he wasn't standing.
They just called you short.
I resemble that remark.
I should have just spoke up and said.
All right. I'm not usually left speechless at the meetings, but that one did it. All right, so
You bring up my
yeah,
number.
hang on just a second. How do I do that?
Somebody just said it's buzzing for 5 seconds. That's
All right. It was, I'm just starting right here. Right? Screen.
There's like
should work.
4 folders. Can I see those on there?
I'm gonna have to go out of it each time.
You bring up just a Windows Explorer.
There you go.
There you go. And you go to the USB drive.
Yeah, of course, I'm not sharing the screen right now. Which one did you want to see?
I'll have to look at them when I get ready.
Okay, we'll just leave this page up, then you should be able to
Okay.
go back. All right, let's go to share screen again.
Let me give you a little background on
Just
while we're
go
doing
here.
this. I've been in the photography business for about 24 years. I was in corporate sales for years and I got burned out in it. So how did I become a photographer? But then I found out I couldn't live on 20,000 a year, which is on a good year for some people. So I became a marketing photographer for architects and engineers. There's some books here that show you what I've done, but my goal is to make my client look really, really good. I've done work for President Carter, spy plane hangars out of Edwards and different places. I've been very fortunate to have a career of what I've brought into. But I get tired of hauling my cameras around. I don't know if you ever do, Travis, but you travel a lot. Those things are a pain in the butt. So I started going on vacations with just my cell phone. Y'all do that? I mean, I don't, cameras are fun for a hobby, but if you do it for a hobby as a living, it's a pain, right? You guys are using, how many are Android and how many are Apple? They're Apple hands? Well, you guys can leave now. And then the rest of you are Android. The good news is I can tell you that what I'm going to show you kind of is cross-pollinated for both platforms. I've used the Apple and I prefer the Google Photos app, which works in Apple. It's editing, it saves a image of your in their cloud if you have a Gmail account, and is not as challenging for me. Now, I don't use a lot of Apple products, but I've tried to at least give it a go, and it never works. So I'm going to spend just a second on this, but
these are the kind of pictures I take for my clients. And the big goal is to focus on one part of the design element. And this kind of plays into camera photography, pretty much any kind. But if you are shooting an image that an architect designed or a developer developed, Transamerica Building, Symphony Hall, the whole premise of how our brain processes an image is exactly the same from professional to the stuff we put on the internet. It's subconscious will first look at a picture and decide, what's about this picture that I am looking at that I should be understanding? It's really tough to shoot something as big as this, a symphony hall, but there's not one particular part of this picture that soaks up your brain and says, I should look at you first. Typically a very bright spot in a picture, a very, very dark spot. The subconscious will try and understand that first.
We
There
can't
are
see the
ways-
picture. At home, we can't see it. We're still
Oh,
seeing
sure.
a list.
How do I share the screen? Thank you for jumping in.
Let's see, you're sharing, but it's not,
What are you saying? What are they
it's
saying?
probably not sharing the right screen, the correct screen.
Okay.
So I need to share this one.
Go share the entire screen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
Yeah, I will share the entire screen at the very top one.
Top right or left?
The top, left,
This one,
right there.
but that's this screen.
It will share the entire.
Oh, it's
it will
still
share
in.
When it changes, it will share the entire screen. Yeah. Now.
I didn't realize we didn't have this one showing something different.
Yeah.
I thought this one was.
There you go.
Can
We
y'all
got
see it now?
Yep.
Do
Good.
we have the camera angled better to see his face instead of
Do I
his?
get down to Mike's level? Is that better?
Love it. You just got serious, bro.
5 years I've been doing this. You save it all for tonight?
We can see you as long as you're sitting. If you're standing, we just see your belly button.
So if you look at professional shots done of buildings or resorts, the photographer and you should have a specific element that you want your audience to look at without any hesitation. What is this I'm looking at? Is it a spy plane in a spy plane hangar? Does one saturate information more than the other? The subconscious is really kind of fun how it plays with this. If it sees anything in a picture, it immediately forgets it. So when you do a depth of field and you make the background less in focus, your brain will go to, should go to what you want to highlight in that particular picture. And then I want to change to a different folder. Is that going to be easier or not?
You should be able to just go down there and grab it.
Okay. How many of you post on social media, your pictures? Good amount. And the ones that don't, just curious, is there a reason? You just not comfortable? No answer, okay. If you shoot pictures with your cell phone and you're considered a hobby photographer or even a professional, your audience will always judge you on your last picture, whether if it's good, if it's bad, they'll remember that bad picture forever. That will influence their take. Certain magazines, Life magazine, Sports Illustrated, even Playboy, went to extremes to make their pictures sharp, crisp, and believable. Not what am I looking at besides some of their ones. This was a shot that I did with, and these are taken with cell phones. And the difference was this was the original or one like it, but it has the buildings leaning back. I'll show you in a minute how to do this, but in the Google Photos, you can correct the parallax of your buildings and do that within 15 seconds. So when your audience looks at your pictures, you'll train them to be more attentive to what you're putting up versus the normal, oh, it's just another one of those, I don't know what it is, keep going. Portraits are the same way. You know, that was one that was taken for a friend, a winery, but looking at people, this is how it normally would show up in somebody's Facebook post, but the background, your subconscious is trying to figure out what is all of this? Does this contribute to the picture or does it hinder it? You got a picture like this, but when you zoom in, then it becomes a really believable what you're focusing on in this. There's the editing capabilities of our phones now are what Photoshop used to be, 10 years ago? It really is amazing. Even the new phones have the ability to do healing brush, which is really fun if you've got tire marks going on. And this was a high school reunion I went to last year and took the pictures with the phone, but then before doing anything with them to post them, went back and edited. Till I have the images of what I just want to show and any corrections I want to add to it. These pictures are put in here not in any specific order, so it makes me have to think what I'm going to talk about. This was a shot done with a cell phone, but it was in the panorama mode on the Oregon coast. You'll notice that there is a person in there, but the only reason I wanted that person in there was for scale. So your mind doesn't go right to, oh, who is that person? You don't over concentrate yourself on who is that? Is it important? No, the first thing that I see is the massive amount of the ocean. And there's a lighthouse and there's a person that gives it scale. I think I have, let's see. In a minute, you'll see the original, which is very difficult to follow what I'm trying to project to you as my audience on social media. You see pictures like this all the time. You may take and put them up, but what do you see first, right? Look at that picture. The exit sign. It jumps out for me, and it does. Now, subconscious, my brain just went to that, and now I've got to look at the people. Do I know them? I don't know. They look happy or not. I have this rule that you don't want to see their feeling, you want to feel if they feel happy or they're interesting to look at. Zoom in some cases, more than you maybe think you should, and you'll be amazed at how many people will tag and make comments about what you're putting up. Also, I'd like to put it in black and white. In social media world, there's not as much as black and white being posted as color. So Travis, you've seen that, haven't you? I mean, I've seen some of your work and it's magnificent, but when you change up a little bit, it catches some attention. This was a great picture of a friend of mine's 2 kids up in North Georgia mountains. What do you see? I see the kids there, but I'm also distracted by the barn down below, the trees, the sunset, the hill in the background. So I did this to it. I said, that was kind of cool, but what if I really want to focus on her face? So zoom in and then blur the background. Your brain says, I don't care what's back there. I want to see what's in focus and what I can pay attention to. Another great example of, I hope this isn't next to it, but the one, yeah. Now you can see the kid's face. You can tell who's who and what's going on. That's a typical picture that you would see. And one of the rules that I live strong by, we've all done it, right? I made a rule in my world of posting is I never post a picture unless I edit it first. There's something I can do to it, especially on social media. They tend to desaturate the image and take down the resolution. This was done on, all these edits were done on my cell phone. This was not my picture. This is somebody else in a photography club that posted this. And I asked for permission, but can you see what she's doing? What do you see? Not everybody at once, but I see the palm trees. I see that lagoon going down. My eyes being distracted on what's going on. Now what's going on? Her. That is the subject of this photograph. And yeah, there's a lagoon, but it's not the big attraction to what's going on there. Here you can't see what she's smiling maybe. There she's really smiling. I need your opinion on this. We had a little bit of a challenge on this. This was the original, sorry. That was the original. And what a great picture of this kid, right? But the bench bothered me. My mind wanted to see where that bench was going and off to the right. So in this, now what they were upset about was I cut off his foot. I don't know what the golden rule on feet are, but he's also wearing, I think, Converse tennis shoes. Here I can see his face. I can tell he's a little swagger looking. In this case, everything else is distracting me on this. A photographer's self-portrait. Now you can see her face. So my theme is to take the pictures, if you're going to post them, use your cell phone, but before putting them up, and also for your images to keep, do an edit with them. Do a real fast crop. I know that Apple has, and so does the Android, little like magic buttons. Do what you think is right. And most of the time that looks pretty good. Better than what the normal original one looks like. Great picture of this kid. Again, not mine, but is your mind distracted with the boundary around the child? Or is it just me? Maybe I'm overcritical, but that's what I wanted to see. Not everybody jump up and down. Yay, makes sense to me. Kids. I think most of the pictures being taken have kids in them at some point. Is anything distracting you in this view? Yeah, about now. The kids, that boy's face is priceless to me. But here you don't, it's their bubble, it's the trees. What's going on in this? So if you do use your cell phone more, and I would encourage you to, because it does, these pictures were all taken with cell phones. At car shows, Mike, you go to them, you use your normal camera. But it's amazing how good they can look. You go to a few car shows.
Yeah.
There's one named after you, isn't there? They should be. This is not my picture, and I apologize if it offends anybody. But I learned a long time ago that solid blacks and solid whites distract the brain. It wants to know, what am I missing? What am I not seeing in that picture? Now you see her face and a couple of, I'm sorry if this is offensive. It just happened to be when I picked up and it was in my folder. I don't know. But then do it in black and white. I love black and white, a little contrast to it. So the original author did that. But I think what happened was the photographer that took this wanted to show all that background because they were there. They may have helped stage it. The photographer feels that attraction, but as a viewer, I've got no idea what that is in the background. I don't want to spend any time looking at it. Another, how often you take this picture or pictures like this, landscape, rotate your phone and crop it. Now you can feel the picture. Everybody nod. Just let me know you're awake. With something in the water. This is a great picture of this model. If you look at it long enough, I got puzzled because I see her legs are dirty. So I spend time like, what? Or maybe they're not dirty. And I can't quite see her face. Now her face comes into view and I can feel her expression. These were done with your cell phone. These were done, I probably spent 15 seconds doing this edit. I edit every picture. So, as a Photoshop, what buttons and what, where to go to do certain edits. Another great picture. Didn't take this, but you like A or B? A? B. B. Okay. Why? For me, you can see those kids' face. To me, I can't even tell what they're looking at. I don't know who that is. But earlier photographers, including I'm unstable according to this, which is pretty normal. I have done pictures like this all my life. I love the background, but what does the road do? It brings your eye back and what's back there? Who cares? It's the kids, it's the donkey. This would look good in black and white, I think. Didn't do this. I stole it, but this is exactly what I'm talking about. You know, the pictures, I've looked at your pictures on the Facebook website, and all of the pictures I've seen you posted are amazing. So it tells me you guys have a really good concept on how to get your audience's attention, but you use that with your cell phone. There's a time and place for both, but there's really good shots that can be brought in with a cell phone by doing the edit. There's not anytime you have a horizon that's not level, the brain instantly says trash. If the author doesn't care about making this picture look the best for me, level that horizon. That is a big, huge red flag. It's like when you're red eye, you see that, you think, oh, you know, not worth looking at. Something's wrong with that. This picture is, I can't see the people's face. Here I can. And then I took out the little whatever that window on the left side is. Yep. Went to in the Google Photos, there's an HDR slider, and they're getting amazing. You guys usually use your phone and you play with it much, thinking this is what I could use, or I don't know what the hell. Bingo. Yeah. Snapseed gives you a lot of, but I want to be able to, for my audience on social media, I want a 15-second edit max, because you're going to view it in photo in either Adobe Photos, not Adobe, but Android or Apple. Why not edit it right when you're looking at it versus loading something else? Here's the original one that you saw earlier. The horizon's not level, and this first part of this bay is coming out, and it distracts for me. So by making the horizon perfectly level, cropping up that upper part, and then adding some color and contrast. Social medias will typically desaturate. Is that your experience, Travis? It's not as sharp as it is if you see it on your screen.
No, not as sharp.
So if you know that, add a little saturation. In Android photos, it's called pop. And I think it's just like a hyper contrast feature. Love that feature.
Facebook tends to make them dark.
Yes.
So I have a tendency to bring photos up about 10–15% on brightness just for posting to Facebook. Because if you don't, it's muddy.
Right.
Gross, and I like dark, so.
I belong to the American Legion down where I live, and this guy was so proud of this picture he had taken of his granddaughter. And I said, Jim, I see a hand, I see all kinds of stuff in there. You see her because you know what's around there, but there. He said, oh my God, how'd you do that? I made it, cropped it down, did a portrait edit. By the way, have you ever used the portrait in your camera mode? Camera does a neat thing, right? It makes the background a little.
Usually works for you.
Usually, yeah, there are times, but that's my go-to choice for almost anything. And then here's the same picture in black and white. Somebody's dog. I've done this with my dogs. Hey, here's my dog, but the picture's not straight. It doesn't look like a picture that I would have posted. And I do want to earn the respect of people that view my pages. I don't know, are you and I friends on Facebook?
Yeah, I think so.
I do this fun thing about twice a month. I'll take a picture, like black and white or color. And I'll ask my audience, what do you guys like? Which one of these two do you like? And if bonus, why? And I get great feedback. It's amazing how many people will stop and say, hey, I liked A. I liked it because you added a little it looked more professional. Do I? This was a picture somebody took on a safari. But look at all the distractions. That white spot is right where your eye goes, then everything else behind it fades in and out. Not much to do with this, but now you've got a better idea of what you're looking at. Even a bad picture looks better than what it was before. This is a good example of zooming in too much, or the photographer didn't shoot a high enough resolution on their camera. You can adjust it. I think most of them default to the higher resolution, but sometimes people adjust that. And if you zoom in too much, it looks blurry. I took this picture 15 years ago. Loved it. That looks to me better. I don't need the distraction of the seagrass and so on. I really wanted to see more of the emotions on the faces and eyes closed. Now you can see that, but you know, they like that. They had it printed, but after going back and looking at it again, that's what I chose. My granddaughter, all that distraction, right? Bring it in, get rid of that background. You can see some of the Christmas tree. Hold my calls. I'm on in a business meeting. Would you? No, no worries. I love kids. I mean, my biggest weakness are kids like this. But look at, you know, this. Now you can see his face and mine. Again, a 15-second edit before I posted this up on social media or shared it with them, sent it to them in a text message. It just, you guys are much better photographers than 99% of the world. Prove it every time you put a picture up or don't put it up. I'm terrible when it comes to doing something instantly, instant gratification. Then I go back and say, crap, wish I'd edited that before I posted it. I mean, come on, that looks great, right? But that's, never mind. Granddaughter again, zoomed in compared to that. Lou and I were at a bar this weekend and saw this little dog, but look at the distraction in the background. And I guess I'm beating this really hard in your head about editing and adding more pop to your pictures. If you're gonna put them up on social media, or I've done a job and the memory stick failed about halfway through. So instead of going back, I shot it with the rest of my camera. Once you understand its advantages and limitations, it's amazing what you can get out of that phone. LSU has the best fans. I mean, these guys, you're crazy. I mean, Georgia's got good fans in Tech, but for 5 years, I was a head photographer at Chick-fil-A Bowl. And I had a chance to go up in this is the old stadium, the very top catwalk. It was so high up that the gentleman that was escorting me said, this is it for me. You're on your own. But this is an example of what I did want in the background. The background helped make the picture, explain what I was doing. It wasn't really a picture about me as much as, oh my God, don't fall. Right? Have you been up in those?
Are those ants running around on the field?
Those are football players. That was, I don't have a fear of heights. So, but to some other people, that give you some weak knees. Another shot that I did with my cell phone. Now, one of me was not a cell phone, it was a regular phone, but this was the San Francisco Bay, taken from the Golden Gate Bridge, but it pans the area and there's not, in my mind, there's not one particular item in this picture that says, oh, there's a Transamerica building. Oh, it kind of all blends in. I think the master of that was Ansel Adams. I mean, he could take a picture of mountains and it would be just spectacular. I take the same picture, it's like, next, next. I do food for a living. I eat food for a living. But there's times that you look at a picture like this and this was taken from a cell phone. Now you're what?
Now I'm hungry. Here's more.
The bread and the beer were intentional as a subline to the headline. And by blurring that, the brain said, don't really spend too much time on that. Go to the muscles. This was a picture I took when my granddaughter was born. And I apologize, the resolution. But I got done, I said, I didn't know poop babies. You know, after looking at this for years, I said, oh, crap. That's what I should have done with that picture. But it's been downloaded from the internet and res up and down too much. Good example of somebody's dating profile picture. Right? I got a bug zapper against the wall. Half the picture is the ceiling. That's what they want to see. And I can't tell you how many times I see pictures where the eyes are in the middle of the frame. You go by the rule of thirds, you know, the eye should be up in the very top of that, bringing it down. I'm going to show you a little bit about this, but the phones now can do perspective correction on the parallel lines. I love that. For years, when I was doing this back in the 1998, when I started, you had to really spend a lot of time to correct the pictures. It was pain. Now they do a better job. If you do this on your phone, unfortunately, it stretches them out a little long. All right. Anybody have any feedback on this? What we're talking about? Yes.
Yeah, but really bad, when my friends, Facebook friends, post something on Facebook. Say they got a family on a beach and they didn't put a flash on, so the faces are all black and the back.
Like silhouettes.
I see this all the time, so I'll just save the picture, and then I edit it and send it back to them.
I've done that. I got chewed out one time from a photo club doing that. I wanted it like that. Sure you did. Okay, I'm sorry. So I'll preface it by saying, I hope you're not offended, but as a professional photographer, I can tell you that not being able to recognize somebody's face is not going to get a lot of attention. These are some videos that I created, and I don't know, Mike, if they're going to show up on the is this now you think going? Can you guys see this on your end? Are you awake?
Yes, I see the preview, yeah.
The mosaic of pictures?
Yes.
Okay.
It should play. We did that a couple months ago.
What's that? Oh, on there. Okay. So this is a quick little video that I created on my phone doing a fast edit. And I did it on this picture here of the building looking like it leaning back. So this is how long it took for me to correct it with Google Photos. I cropped it so that the middle of the image is perpendicular. Went too far one way, now back the other. And then in the bottom here, is where it says reset. The first icon next to that allows you to bring in the corners to line up with the parallel of the building. And that's all it took. So you show somebody that other picture and they go, I've seen hundreds of those. But show them something like that and it becomes, wow, they must be pretty good. Or better than I think they are. I didn't edit my video very well, but that's my dog. Oh, okay, let me tell you what this is. Stop it here. You know, on your phone where you can do a panorama, left to right, right to left, turn it 90 degrees and do a panorama from top to bottom. It's really cool. I've done it on several I did this afternoon of my living room. If you really want to have fun with this and you're shooting a family, you're doing you know what I'm talking about. You get about halfway through and you stop. You get a couple of these people to run over to this side and get in the same picture. Here's something I did this and it was even cooler. And then here I am straightening up the even though it's bowed because of the way it stitches them together. But go out into the woods with a model and pick a wide enough scene with different places for her to pose. Get her posing here, panning, she poses. Now you start panning and she runs over to another one, poses, and you keep doing that and you can stop your camera from moving while she moves to the other part. You got the same person and you've done that?
I did one and accidentally the dog ran down the driveway and the dog was now like 14 feet long.
How cool is that?
It kept getting the dog as the dog meandered down the driveway.
Still boxing by chance?
No, it was not.
So this is the cowgirl, and this was maybe it's a minute long, but it's because I was jumping around on different tabs to pull down. But the first part was to edit it, and then I realized I don't know if this is that the boots really were distracting for me. So I needed to see her face and her slender look. And the wood that she's leaning on is not distracting. The trees aren't in focus, so they're. Then I go in and do a quick edit to her face with HDR, and that now becomes a picture that I would post on the web or give it to a client. I belong to a Facebook page, beginner photographers, and it's scary. You see stuff that you could, that's not the, and there's how much you think I can charge for this? $200 to $300? No, probably none of that.
I know that page. I haven't posted on it yet, but I just like reading the comments.
Right. I got to put on parole or not parole, but probation because I was being too, selective in what I was trying to help them understand. You see these pictures of an engagement picture and there's the people and then the background is like, what am I looking at? To them, they were there. They understand that. But to the observer, no. Same thing with this. This was a real simple edit. But if you take the best picture you can with your cell phone and not required to do that much editing, clearly it's going to be a better picture when you finish. So I turned it into from a landscape to a portrait. And when you hit the portrait edit, it does do a background blur. I'm not a big fan of things that are symmetrical either. I like to put things off to the side. I did learn a valuable lesson is, and you were kind of talking about this earlier, I think, is you never have an object leaving the scene. So if you have somebody off to the left or right, have them looking into the scene, not out of the scene. Have you all done any of these AI apps on your phone that change people? Some of them are pretty cool. Anybody else have any fun experience with that? Well, let's see. That's what AI did in about 12 seconds. If you realize, obviously that's me, much more macho, up in the Alps. But these apps, I mean, years ago, in order to have something 3D modeled, it would take all day. It was very expensive. When you send a picture to the AI apps, they render it in less than 3 or 4, because the picture has to be transmitted to their server. They do all the editing and send it back to you. So these to me have been kind of fun to work with. These are a good example. This is a good example of doing a pan from the bottom up. I also think people take pictures with their phones too high. I think it's, Mike, you've seen pictures you've done on where you're almost eye level with the cars. If they're too high, then you see too much of something you don't want. Does this have audio if I click on it?
It has in the past.
So this is a, wow, this is my granddaughter. And it did a, there you go. But this was free. If you're gonna have fun with your cell phone, try one of these things out. They're really amazing. How many of you have taken pictures outside your airplane window at 4 o'clock in the morning and get a good picture? The phones now, I'm blown away on how this is downtown, I think, Nashville. But that's not bad. And a moving plane out of its unedited stock photo. I mean, stock image. The moon, obviously. I just never imagined that to work. I looked at it and I said, oh, come on. I know there's night mode, but this did it. I just put it up on the window, hit the shutter, and it knew what to do with it. You guys aren't even oohing and awing. I mean, come on, throw me a little bone here. Come on.
Where's that at?
You know where that is? That one.
No, I don't. I think it was in the West Coast.
Looks like LA.
This picture is taken with a regular camera, but I've done this with cell phones. That's on top of a mirror. That's the same magnolia bloom, but being mirrored image. Mike, you've seen me take pictures at car shows. I'm always on the ground looking up. And I think even when you shoot people in perspective, looking down a hallway or in a tourist area, so looking down, it makes them look taller, if anything, if you shoot from the ground up. It's even cooler if there's water pooled on the ground. Put the camera right next to that pool of water, or put a mirror on the ground, and it gives a nice, unique touch. Every one of these pictures was taken with a cell phone. Do you what? Yeah, but how many times are you seeing a picture where it's, I don't know what the actual name for that person, but you're looking more realistic on the car itself. These two cars, the blue one and the red one, are real. This is a real Shelby Cobra and a Ford GT40. Each one was worth about $1.5 million. And they showed up at our American Legion car show. I was like, Jay Leno would drool for these cars. It gives, I walked up to it and I said, this can't be. Is it, and because of that badge on the dash, that signifies it's an original. These aren't, every one of the pictures I took have been edited down, so it's just of the subject I'm looking at. That you didn't go to the American Legion one, did you? But you've seen this Woody around places.
Yeah, pretty sure.
Taking panoramas of crowds is tough, especially at a car shows, to try and get the perspective. This was done with the panorama left to right, right to left. But then I edited it so that the right side of the fire truck was cut out, and on the left side, whatever distraction was going on was cut out. This was the coolest car there.
Kids. I have pictures of that car too.
Yeah,
I think I did one with you.
this guy was chatting away and I walked up with my cell phone and took a quick picture of his shoes. Ferrari, he drove a Ferrari, he had Ferrari shoes. I mean, that's. Scouts were the best. I don't know, but the little girl on the right was in control of the two boys on the left. It was, this is the way it should be. They're getting things done. The bumpers of those old cars, I mean, that had to hurt if you just tapped into that.
Remember, is your phone can focus really close to things. You know, your
Extra.
camera, a lot of times, if you're using a regular lens, has a minimum focus distance of maybe here to Rick. Whereas your cell phone, you can get right up on things and get really detailed little pictures out of them, so.
Most of them now will switch into macro mode without having to do that. I will say that I have gone into my cell phone and turned the flash on intentionally when there's a lot of contrast on whatever I'm shooting. It does a great job of balancing that. And that's about, the message I have is never post a picture that you don't edit, crop it correctly, get just the subject you want to show, not the trees or the ocean in the background, and post them and ask your friends, hey, I just took this. Which one do you like, A or B, and why? And I'm getting about 20 or 30 people now every time I do that having a response. I've kind of trained them that I put something up that I think is pretty cool and should be something to look at. And the more you do that, the more often people are going to pay attention. I've had the luck of walking around with Sergey Brin. Anybody know what he is? Started Google. Did President Carter's portrait. Here's something to try, and this is off the cell phone topic. But I read there's a great picture of Winston Churchill on the cover of Life magazine where he's just grimacing. He's like, "Arr!" And the photographer took that picture. And he later on explained how he did it. And I kind of did the same thing with President Carter. What this guy did is wait to the very last plate he had, slid it in, and told Churchill that he was going to stand over to the side. He's got the shutter button. Right before he hit it, he snagged his cigar. And that's been click. And so with President Carter, I walked up and I said, you've been photographed hundreds, if not thousands of times by photographers. And you've all been posed. I'd like to take my last picture of you the way you'd like to be posed. And that's the one I did. But I also was told I'd never have a chance to do it again because I broke the Secret Service. I only had, let's say, 2 seconds to talk to him. I spent maybe a minute and a half. It wasn't a threat, but I knew that would be my last chance. So I made it the best one I could. And that concludes today's audience. Or presentation. Should we bow our heads and pray for better ones? I'm going to end with this. I was hired. This was a U-2 spy plane. They still fly them, believe it or not. These were invented when Eisenhower was the president. Out at Beale Air Force Base, they are still training pilots how to fly this. This one has a cockpit in the back. But I was hired by the engineer to photograph the new hangar with this new exhaust or this new system that would put out a flame very quickly. And by getting this angle, my intent was to show the plane there, but not to be that, wow, U-2, but wow, ceiling. Same thing with that one. That concludes. I could go, photographers could talk forever, right? Give me a subject.
know it's a question or just like a comment, I don't know, but like the lion photo.
Right.
The lion photo. I struggle with, well, what do I want, what story do I want to portray? You know, you wanted to zoom in on that lion and that was your focus. I found a lot of other interesting things to
Right.
tell the rest of the story around it. You had the people here, you had, I think, a woman's reflection down here in her camera or whatever, like, and they were all looking on the lion. So I don't, how do you balance that, I guess? I mean, or is
I
it
think it's
your-
what you
your
want,
preference?
it's your, yeah, whatever you want the audience to read into that. The one way they could have fixed that blown out line from that was to use your finger and tap on the screen of your phone, hit that right spot, and it will set the exposure on just where you tapped. It'll also do the focus and the exposure. So when you take it, and you can also, as you know, you can pinch in and pinch out for zoom. The issue with that is in dark areas, you zoom in, it's gonna look pretty grainy. Although I did see in the new Google Apps, they have a denoise filter out. I mean, they're gonna have a filter that says, take a picture for me,
Yeah.
when you think it's proper.
Yeah.
This was a church, but if you notice, if you look at the shadow, there's no leaves on the tree. When they built the pond, the excavators cut the roots and killed that tree. So if I had just left that barren, it would have looked like a sore thumb. So I got busy and planted it one by one up in a, no. All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Probably talking about how we're seeing his. Mike, you want to come up and get started on ready to do the. It's a good question here. What is the best way to light food when shooting with a cell phone? Natural light, use a flash, or other? What if you're in a low artificial light situation?
So the phones now, I don't know about Samsung or Apple, but the one I have does automatically adjust the setting to being low light, and it tells you on the screen, low light shooting. I tried to start with my phone and look like, what?
Yeah.
It worked. I mean, how does it do that?
Mine has a food setting.
Does it really?
That it has a food setting, and what it does is it tapers focus off away as it goes away from the food.
Right.
So it puts a little box on the screen and you put whatever your food is in that box and click the picture, and it makes the exposure perfect for the food and blurs it out in the background. And, you know, I mean,
It's almost like portrait mode.
it's almost like portrait mode, but it's specifically for food, and it's a small box that says, this is where you need to put your subject, and it kind of works.
We'll
through.
try that tonight at dinner.
Yeah,
The
we'll have a lot of pictures of food on the.
That's right.
the app's looking for an outline of the face.
Mhm.
I'm assuming in food, doesn't show me a face, it just show me something that.
Yeah, it's just a little box. It just has a little registration marks basically in the corners and says, and it moves around and you can kind of position it and.
Portrait mode will work too, though, if you're trying to do flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll work just fine, you'll solve.
So that was,
Any other questions?
we're done.
Anyone's workshop and commercial photography.
On the way up. There's a bee behind.
One of us could probably work on this.
Where'd that bee come from? But those. The ability to do macro photography with phones is just amazing. You gotta hold still.
All right. Well, thanks again, Bob. And Bob is on Facebook. Bob, just look up Bob Hughes and you want to contact him. And he's on our online page too. So you can put comments there.
Facebook. And my user ID is photobob26.
And I do the low angle car shots too, but I can't bend my knees. So I just hold my camera here. But when I started doing that about 2 or 3 years ago, I mean, everybody all the car owners loved my shots. And then I started doing it here instead of holding it up here, and it made a difference. And if I could get down lower, it'd be even better, but health comes first. Anyways, let's go ahead and get the slideshow back up for the
Close that whole tab.
let's see.
Close the. You just right click on it and close that whole tab.
Are we still logged in? Did you stop the sharing?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I can go back to our page. Okay.
That's what I was saying. Just right click and close this whole window, this whole tab. Is it not letting you? No. Because it's just got those open in windows, each one.
See.
Now you should be able to go share and get to the PowerPoint.
There you go. Had to find the PowerPoint again. All right, so I saw Lisa was online.
I am
So,
here.
Lisa,
Can you
let's
hear
see.
me?
We can hear you.
Hey,
All
Okay.
right, so I'll let you talk. And then we'll let Travis talk.
yep. So our challenge this
not.
month, the theme was waterfalls, and we had 11 entries this month. You can advance the slide, Mike.
Okay, yeah, I just did.
So these are the rules for 2024. They may change for next year somewhat. But you have to be a paid member to enter the photo challenge. It's one single image, and it can only be up to 2 years old. And in 2024, we started using an independent judge for the challenge versus the membership voting. And this month, Travis is our judge. And once he goes through a review of the 11 images that were submitted, I will run through the top 5 images. So we have 5 images that place each month, and there are points awarded for those images. Points are accumulated throughout the year, and at the end of the year, next month at our Christmas party, the photographer of the year will be announced, and that person receives a prize of $100 and a free membership for the following year. And the monthly winner each month also receives a $15 gift card. So we'll get into our images and let Travis run through them for us.
Okay, and just as a reminder, it's all done blindly, so Travis doesn't know. He picked his 5
That's
top,
correct.
but he doesn't know who they are. It's
Yeah.
all
The images are submitted anonymously with all of the detailed data removed from the file images.
And I agreed to do this like in March, long before I was gonna step in and take the reins from Mike. So I'm gonna kind of run through a shortened version of a critique that I'm looking for from our judges for next year when we do this. It's less about, hey, I like this, I don't like that. It's more about how can we make it better, or what elements of it work and what elements of it may not work as much. And the starting point on any image, for me, is the impact, and then the storytelling, and then the technical. So those are the kind of the 3 things that I look at the most: is the impact of the image, what happens when I first see it, and then is it telling a story? Do I feel like there's a clear subject? And then the technical. By trade, I was an architect, so technical is kind of where I lived. And so I kind of end up being very technical with my work. I'm working on that. I'm trying to be a little less technical these days, but anyway. So the first one, particularly the lower angle of view works well. It puts the viewer right in the scene. The water's coming right towards you. It's a little less of a waterfall and more of a cascade. I know that's kind of splitting hairs. But for me, sometimes being more on point for the topic is really important. If I tell you that the topic is horses and you show me a giraffe, it's kind of an animal that has 4 legs and a neck, but it's not a horse. This is kind of the same kind of situation here. I might also recommend using a circular polarizer to help cut some of the glare on the water. One of the things we like about waterfalls usually is that nice ribbon of water that's bright through a darker scene, you know, through rocks or through trees or whatever it is. And that water really stands out. In this case, the white water and the reflections on the water kind of make it all run together. And so it loses some of that definition and clarity. Yeah.
Have you had success with a polarizing filter in the shade?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I haven't. That's,
Oh, yeah. I don't shoot water pictures without a circular polarizer. Every time. Even if I was just in the Smokies and it was raining, and the only thing I had on the front of my lens was my circular polarizer. Because it does 2 things for me. It cuts down glare both on water, but also on rocks. Because if rocks are wet, they will be shiny. And a circular polarizer can cut some of that down, or if you get it at the right angle, it can cut it all out completely. And circular polarizers also act as neutral density filters. They reduce light coming in just a little bit. Mine is good for about a stop, maybe a stop and a half. So if it's shady and I put that on there, I don't really need any other filters to get to my shutter speed that I want. So yeah, around water, you might as well, you need to have a circular polarizer, not a linear, circular. Linear is a mess. You want circular polarizers. Is it this button?
Yeah.
We talked about getting low. I didn't know we were going to talk about that today, but I'm glad we did. This does that. This gets a different perspective. I don't know how big that waterfall really is, but it looks a lot bigger than it probably is in person because of the perspective. The photographer got really low and shot up toward the waterfall, making it feel bigger and more imposing. And we'll see in another one, it also minimized the sky. A lot of times when you get a waterfall, you get a lot of extra sky, or the triangle of nothingness, as some people call it. If you're in a place like Cloudland Canyon, where you have the trees that come down on both sides to a big waterfall, and then it comes over the rock, and then you've got this triangle of nothingness sky in the middle, that unless the sky is really interesting, that little piece of sky is not interesting. So this perspective minimizes that and works really well in this case. It's also well done that it's sharp both in the foreground and the background. You could also play with shooting at a really wide aperture to get the waterfall in focus and let all of the foreground stuff go out of focus. Just something to play with when you're out in the field. Shoot it both ways, because when you get back in home and you're looking at it on the screen, you might decide, some of this stuff was a little too distracting to me. If it was out of focus, it would have still provided that context, but it wouldn't have been so distracting, particularly since it's right in your face as the viewer. I mean, up on the big screen here, you can see it's right there. Very challenging image to get. And it's because of the waterfall and the building being in the shade with that nice light on the mountain ridges in the background. But it was well done. It was well exposed, whether it was blended in post or if it was done in HDR, it doesn't really matter to me. The presentation is well done. We've got a nice building on the side. We're leaving plenty of room moving over toward the water. One thing that can be tricky with waterfalls is blowing out your water and your highlights. And this one gets a little bit close. What side is that on? Over there, you can see the big part of the water is actually right there. That big part of the water is getting a little blown out where you're losing some of that detail. And when you're just posting it online, no big deal, nobody cares. That comes into play more when you're going to print and put something on paper and put it up on the wall. You want to try to really protect your highlights. Most people, when they go out to a waterfall, they go find the centered on look and get the most basic shot that everybody gets. What this photographer did, at least the way I think, in my interpretation of how they're presenting this, is they were looking for a way to frame this waterfall in and around the scene that it is appearing in. They're not getting that standard straight on shot. And I applaud them for looking for that alternate perspective because it provides us some context with the rock face on this side, the little bit of rock here. We have some nice open water that leads us from the corner of the frame right up to the waterfall. And I generally am a fan of negative space. But negative space needs to be used in a way that it works for something instead of distracting from something. And in this case, to me, this image might have been stronger if it was cropped along in just to the left of this tree trunk, because this over here, all of this space isn't really helping me, but it's not doing anything for the image. A lot of times negative space can be used to create a feeling of isolation, but in this case, it's pushing what is our primary subject off to the far corner of the image, which weakens the image a little bit. If you bring the crop back to where the waterfall is more centered in the top third of the image, you can see that it starts to become a little stronger composition. This is another scene where you could play with shallow depth of field, putting the rocks in the foreground a little out of focus and focusing more on the waterfall, creating that depth in the image. But I like the alternate composition and the thinking outside the box and not doing it the same way that 90% of people are going to do it when they walk up to that waterfall. Believe this is Dry Falls up in North Carolina. Stopping the motion, not something we see a lot. I mean, I don't do it very often, but I have changed the way I think. I used to come out to a scene like this and immediately try to get to a 10-second exposure. Just that nice, silky, flowy white water. But I've started working back to where you get some of the texture in the water. And in this case, because the waterfall, the water flow over the waterfall, say that 10 times fast, was minimal enough that you could freeze the motion and capture the little bits of water. That's a challenging spot to shoot because there's a lot of stuff in the front that's kind of distracting. So they've done a good job of focusing our attention on the waterfall and letting us see a little bit of the space around it. We've created a little bit of depth in the scene with these overlapping trees in the foreground and then the waterfall and then the trees receding in the background. So that was well composed and well done. Another one where we're getting low. We're getting right up in there. And what I would encourage is, I want to make this go away. I figured out how to do that once before. Hide the video panel. No, hide that. There we go. Is that better? I got rid of that ugly control panel. So you can start to see here that triangle of nothingness I was talking about earlier. we've got this nice, dense, lush forest on both sides of this waterfall. This is Minnehaha, I think. But then you get that bright area at the top that just kind of gets distracting. In this case, it doesn't really bother me so much because it almost feels a little foggy, a little atmosphere. If you're going to get low and put something in the foreground, make it count. And in this particular case, I might have tried to, as Bob talked to us tonight, crop and maybe rotate or change your format just a little bit to focus more on the center part of the waterfall, because this is particularly what I'm looking at that I like. I like that it comes through the frame and works its way out. I think just a little bit of attention to what the foreground is would help just a little bit on this image. Someone traveling. This is not North Georgia. It's a pretty classic, iconic shot. I've not been there, but you see how they handled that unstable internet connection again. You see how they handled the triangle of nothingness. They minimized it. It's just a tiny little bit up here in the corner in the top, which is not very distracting to me because it leads right to the waterfall. That bright spot is where your eye might start, and then it works through that waterfall and through the entire image. One thing I might have done is look at cropping out the man-made object down here in the bottom, this viewing platform. The viewing, and the reason being is the viewing platform cuts off the bottom of the waterfall already. So is this viewing platform helping my story? Is it not? You know, we talked about people in the image. If there had been two people right there looking at the waterfall, then you might include it, because then you are showing a little bit about how they are experiencing that space and that place. As it is, I think that the image would have been just a little bit stronger had we not included this railing and this sign and the trash bin and all that down here in the bottom. So if you don't notice it in the field, think about cropping it when you get home. I know we all paid for all the megapixels in our cameras and we want to get them all every time, but I'm not above saying, I missed that little thing down there in the bottom. I'm going to crop it out and strengthen the picture's composition as opposed to making sure I just got it as I shot it. So again, down low, right in the water's coming right at you. I kind of feel that cold water on my feet just looking at this picture. It makes me feel that. It makes me feel like I am immersed in this image. The control of light through this is pretty well done. If you've never been into these slot canyons, you get light on one end of them, and then on the other end of it, it's kind of dark. And a lot of times your camera has a hard time dealing with that, whether if you're have an older camera that doesn't handle the dynamic range as much, but the light in this is really well handled. You see that little bit of glare on the rocks? I bet there was a circular polarizer used that cut that down, because this could have been really bright. Imagine how much that would have changed that image if this whole rock face was just glaring wet rock bright. It would have been distracting and taking your eye away from the water moving through this scene. Again, we've got great lines leading our eye in. The stick brings you in, and then the water leads you up to the waterfall. We don't have that triangle of nothingness. The one thing I will say about this, and it might be personal preference, think about any edit you do on your image, whatever it is you're doing. Does it help or does it hurt? Is it helping the image? Is it distracting from the image? Is it distracting from what my subject is? And for me, the brightening and pixelation of the borders really kind of grabs my attention. It's really taking my eye away from what I want to be looking at. And I'm sure we've all heard it said, your eye is drawn to the bright parts of images. And the bright parts are the corners where there's nothing and my eye is leaving. And I always say, if I can keep my viewer on the image longer and get them looking through into the image, it's more successful. If your eye is leaving the corners, well, chances are the viewer is going to leave and go to the next image. So think about what you're doing when your edits. Is it helping or is it hurting? Oh, we had a real theme with the low, get in the water and your feet wet kind of thing going on. Again, a good angle on it. You're looking up. It increases the height of the waterfall as opposed to looking down on it. But this one does show you that this is the one I was waiting to get to. You see the triangle of nothingness in the top. It's where there's no trees. And on this particular day, the sky wasn't very interesting because the reality is a lot of times if we're going to go shoot waterfalls, we want it to be overcast. Because overcast light is much more pleasing when shooting waterfalls. You don't get all the hot spots of sun coming through and the bright parts, and you're trying to balance out the exposure that the best part of the waterfall is in some bright sunlight, but then the cool cascades are in the shadows. And so it gets really complicated. So a lot of times in a scene like this, I will work to try to figure out how to minimize that sky at the top. And in this case, it might be moving over to the right to put the top of the waterfall more in line with the trees in the background, as opposed to looking straight on where the water's coming over the top of the rocks. Move off to one side or the other where you're shooting more like the cars, where you're shooting 3/4 on. Instead of looking straight at the car, looks 3/4 on. That might help eliminate or minimize some of that bright sky that's not really helping in this image. But the shutter speed is nice. I like that they're nice tendrils. They're not blown out. So that was well done. And again, I like using the elements in the image to bring your eye in. You have a nice open spot in the corner for the eye to work up. It bounces off of these bright rocks right up to the waterfall. So you're working and leading the eye through this image really well. The photographer did a good job of composing this. Just a little bit of that sky just gets a little bit distracting. And I know, can't do anything about it. It's hard. Yeah. You could. I'd probably crop it down more instead. I was just looking at an image yesterday where someone had done that and they cloned a bunch of tree branches. The problem is if you're not really careful about how you clone, it's really obvious. Because all of a sudden you have, you got trees and leaves and a branch that goes to nowhere. And that's what I was looking at in an image yesterday. The branch didn't land on a tree. It landed in midair. And if you're going to go through the effort of cloning like you did with your tree that was dead, you got to do a really good job of it. Otherwise, it's obvious that you've done that, and then it kind of gets discounted, at least in my experience. If you've got a really poor job of cloning, it's like, well, what else of this image is not really there or was, a good photograph? So to me, it's more of work the composition in the field rather than just take what you got. I had a post the other day, last week, that I shot the same little cascade in the mountains 12 different ways. And I shared all 11 or 12 of those compositions. And kind of like Bob was saying, what do y'all like? Which one do you think works better? And it was less about trying to figure out which one everyone else liked, because then I would like that one. But it was more about getting people to think about, spend more time shooting something. I spent over an hour at that one location trying to figure out what the best composition for that spot was. And so that might be what I encourage you more from this image is think of other compositions. Don't just get one and move on. Get one, try something else, couple more things.
Can I say something?
Yeah,
I really like this picture, and it's because of that little tiny newborn tree coming up. That brightness and contrast,
Mhm.
it leads me across the stream to the
Yep.
brighter leaves, and it works its way up to the top.
Mhm.
But that's a great picture.
all right, last one. Kind of like the first one. Yes, this is a waterfall, but to me, the subject is more the stairs and the person on the stairs. And I like the creative take on the theme, and I'm never going to say that that's a bad thing to do, is to try to think outside the box. But to me, this image is more about the person walking up the stairs. If I was going to do this, I might have waited until they got to a viewing point and then stopped and then made it about them experiencing the falls rather than walking up to it. It's like the picture was taken before the best point. It's almost like you're watching the movie and your internet cuts out. You don't get to see the grand finale of that movie. And that's kind of what it feels like. It's like we're getting there, and maybe that's some of the tension that the photographer was trying to impart, but it leaves a little bit to be wondered for me, just looking at it. And I think that's it. So I think I turn it back over to Lisa now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and we'll start with fifth place.
And nobody's shooting me, it's just my.
All right, so now we will go and see which pictures Travis selected. Lisa, did you want to announce the winners?
Yeah, fifth place, Sandy Powell. Fourth place, Joe Kovarek. Third place, Mike Sussman. Second place, Lisa Hilty. And first place this month,
And drum roll for the winner.
Jason Blaylock.
He won, I think, 2 months ago. He's won a couple times.
Mhm.
So I didn't put Lisa's last slide that we normally use because we didn't know exactly how we're doing the challenge. The monthly challenges come next year, but we'll announce that on Facebook and Dropbox link and all that kind of stuff. So watch for that. Do we know if we're going to do that in January or?
January, I think if I can nail down the judge I want, January will be
Okay.
our first photo review. And it will be just photo review, where I hope everybody submits.
Right, and I like the way, because you were able to do a little bit more. We had time at the end
Yeah.
and got a little bit more in depth. And I like that a lot of the people here were asking questions and getting involved too. And that's kind of what we want to do
That's
with the
what I hope
challenge.
you to be. It's more interactive, because if you have a question about why I thought that way, I want you to be able to say it. And when we're trying to do it real quick at the end of the meeting, it's sometimes we're like, oh, it's getting late. I don't want to ask a question. You might hold back. And if the whole meeting is dedicated that month to photo review and more people participate, we all learn more. We all learn more.
So is Jason here?
No, unfortunately not. He lives in Rome. He's a paid member of our club. He's also a paid member of the Rome Club.
To hear a story behind it.
Yeah, he won at least one ribbon at the shootout. I don't know if he won two, but I know he won one. So, but he's a really good photographer, and hopefully we can get him to come to a meeting sometime. I don't know if he's online or not, but I look forward to letting him know that he was the winner this month. All right, so our next meeting, well, first off, no meeting in December. We don't have a meeting in December because we have our holiday party, which will be on December 7th, 6 p.m. at the Gainesville Civic Center. Tentatively, our first meeting of the year, still going to be on the third Thursday of the month, would be January 16th at 7 p.m. We don't know where it's going to be yet. It could be here, it might be somewhere else. We don't know what our presentation is. We don't know the photo challenge, but watch, we got 2 months. We got 2 months to decide. And with that, I'm actually really signing off this year. So I have been club president for 5 years. And I've enjoyed every minute of it. Sometimes it gets a bit difficult. It is time consuming, but I love this club. And I am still going to be a part of it. I don't know exactly what my role is, but I'm probably still going to be running the Facebook page. That's kind of how I started. I have the utmost trust in Travis and in Danielle, keeping things going. Dick is also stepping down. Dick has been the vice president since I've been president. He became treasurer and secretary. He did everything that was involved with setting up, getting us incorporated. Been my right-hand man, so that is great. So we both have trust in Danielle and Travis, and I hope you'll treat them like you would treat me, or maybe even better, as I found out how some of you really feel about me tonight. But no, so it has been a privilege to serve, and I'm looking forward to just participating. But like I said, I'm still going to be involved. This is not my club. This is our club. This is everybody's, and we always appreciate everybody's input. And that's it. Let's eat. Whoever wants to go eat. That's right.
Mike, you've done a great job for the club and you really brought it a long way in 5 years. Appreciate you.
Thank you.